Hola, amigas y amigos. Welcome to the MíraLA Podcast. I'm your host, Arianna Lemus. This podcast is by women, for women, and anyone willing to listen to women. Enjoy the show. Isabel Grace is a woman-owned florist business. Aside from making beautiful bouquets for every occasion, she and her team plan events to help you celebrate all of your family celebrations and milestones. From baby showers, birthdays, graduations, and weddings, Isabel Grace is a proud sponsor of the MíraLA Podcast, providing all of our guests their favorite arrangement of flowers. In this episode, I interview Tamika Lewis. Tamika is a therapist and started Women of Color Therapy and Women of Color House based in Valley Glen, California. She is a proud single mother and a graduate from UCLA. As an entrepreneur, she wants to leave a legacy for women and women of color. Let's welcome Tamika Lewis. I am so happy to be talking to a close friend, a mentor of mine, Tamika Lewis. Hi, Tamika.
Hi, Arianna.
Wow. I feel like there's so much to say in this episode, considering this is a reshoot. So it feels like we're just jumping back in again.
Yeah.
And so much has changed since the last time we spoke here at the WOC House. And I want to touch so many areas in your life, from being a single mother to being an entrepreneur to not owning just one business but two businesses. So where would you like to begin today? Where does the story begin?
Wow, that's a really important. I like that question. I think because even in our work with clients, it's all about helping to draw out like their story, and some aspect of that is learning how to kind of return to parts of who we are that oftentimes we just kind of stray from. And so I think where does my beginning
where are we at now?
Thankfully over the hump a little bit of all of the adrenaline of taking a leap like this, right? Of opening a space that's really dedicated to teens and women of color. We don't have a lot of spaces like that, right? And we have been open now since February, right? We secured the house in October. We started renovating and then moved in February. So since then, we have seen like hundreds of women and teens come through this space and find healing and community, like everything that we set out to do. I get chills every time, because I've been able to see it come to life, you know? So I'd say we're definitely over the hump, but still kind of in the ramp up stage.
So with the WOC House specifically and WOC therapy, why don't we just, for the listeners who are just kind of new, tuning in, what's the difference and what's the similarities between both?
So WOC therapy is the official mental health practice that we started in 2019. Back then, I was running a solo practice and realized that there was a grave need for more therapists of color in the community. And so I hired my first therapist, and we just continue to grow. Now we're a team of 7 therapists and 2 interns. And then we have our wellness director who helps us plan all of our like workshops and yoga classes and things here. So the WOC House came to life when we moved out of our office into this beautiful home, now that we call the WOC House. So now we're kind of seeing how they merge, and grow.
And with WOC therapy specifically, for the listeners that are tuning in, majority of our listeners are women, women of color. So what would be your advice to those ladies who just haven't sought therapy yet, and the restraint that they have against it?
It's really scary to first acknowledge that you need support, right? That whatever you're doing is not working. It's a very vulnerable point to be at. And then the next scary thing is like finding that person that you're going to entrust, right, with your story. And so I think what is really amazing about the work we do, all of us on the team, we're women of color from all sorts of ethnic backgrounds with stories for days, right? Just lived experience that we bring to the room, to therapy. And so our clients feel seen and heard in ways that they don't otherwise feel working with other therapists. So I do think that's what distinguishes us. And then on top of that, to be able to come to a home where when you walk in the door, you can decide to have your session in a room, a cozy room, or have it outside, be able to sink your feet into the grass. I just think that's the coolest thing ever.
I know. And it's such a beautiful, safe space for women to come into this home and get a therapy session, but then also be invited to all the beautiful workshops that are also going on outside of the therapy clientele that you see. What types of workshops have came across, or what type of workshops have came into the WOC House?
So we have done a whole range of, I would say mostly somatic type workshops. We understand that trauma is stored in the body. So part of the purpose of this place is to offer holistic healing services. So we're talking about all the things, but you're also like moving and trying to kind of work all of that energy out of in and out of your body, right? In generative ways. So yoga classes, salsa, boxing, right? Sometimes as women, we have a lot of rage. And so to be able to come and just knock that shit out, right? Like, and to do it in a place where you look around and you're like, okay, I'm with my people. Like this, I feel safe to do this, right? That's really what it's all about.
Where did this idea, where did this vision come from for you to create a wellness center here in Los Angeles?
Well, I think the mission behind WOC Therapy really was born out of my own personal experiences. Number one, with the loss of two really close friends to suicide. And these were women who on the surface, they're the women that you look at and you're like, dang, like they got it all together, right? And on the inside, they were really struggling. And it was a shock to me, and I think that really helped me become like curious of this impasse that we often experience of like who we present to the world and who we really are, right? And especially as women of color, because I feel like we have to like show up in ways that are just like 150%, beyond, right? Like normal, just to feel worthy, right? And so it's kind of like, just a need that I had of, man, I just wish that I had a space to kind of go to. And then what really like solidified this whole move into the house was a plant medicine journey that I went to in Peru in 2022 that was inspired by my friend Helen. And Helen transitioned in 2020, and she was a beautiful soul who loved to go to Peru and do all sorts of healing there. So a bunch of us went and did a ceremony, and we spent hours in a garden. And sitting in that garden, I mean, I hadn't sat in front of a flower like that for hours. And I mean, I had bees right here, and I just thought, whoa, like this is incredible. Like, we have to take this therapy thing out of the office and bring it into a space where people can connect to earth and just nature. And so when I got back from that trip, that's when I just, the seed was planted of like, okay, this is what I want to do, but like, how is it going to happen? And then my friend Raimundo, who I've been friends with for 13 years, just so happened to be ready to move on in his life, leaving this home of 20 years and buying a restaurant in Mexico. And so it just, he believed in what we were doing, and he agreed to sell the house to me at a really great rate. And that's really how it, right?
So divine.
Yeah.
Like it's so in alignment that like you can't even make it up. It's not even a coincidence. It was almost like meant to happen.
Yeah.
A beautiful segue to our sponsor here. So the flowers that you were staring at, were they sunflowers? Because that's the flowers you chosen today, or what is your connection to sunflowers?
They just make me happy. They just, they're bright and playful and things that I always try to aspire to, even in the heaviness of life, So I just think they're really pretty.
Do you buy yourself flowers?
I do, actually.
I think it's so important. And when that song with Miley Cyrus came out, like it was such a powerful song. And I sing it to myself all the time when I'm alone, because I think that self-love journey is something that we all have to experience to some capacity in this lifetime. So talk to me about your self-love journey.
I just had a thought. I asked one of my 13-year-old clients. I told her I gave her the homework to go get herself some flowers because she's obsessed with getting a boyfriend. And I said, no. We need to just first love ourselves. She's like, I'm not going to go get myself. And so she did it. And she took a picture of them, and it was just the and then she broke out in that song.
Yes. Dance party.
Yeah, it was really, really fun moment. But self-love, I think the greatest thing I've given to myself, which it breaks from what I observed in my mom, is I make sure I have a good time. I have girlfriends in my life, and even with the kids, I make sure that, yes, I work my ass off. I work really hard, but I also like to play, And so when it's time to go out with the girls, or I've taken the kids, and I'm so grateful to have been able to take them on trips to Thailand and Japan, just us three, and that's a big deal, to have been able to give them that, and so we've been able to see life and experiences beyond, just kind of our immediate surrounding, So I think that I think that's kind of the biggest thing that I'm trying to practice, but I am still working on just the daily rest, right? The daily things, simple things that we can do.
Well, I was going to mention, you brought up your kids, so we talked about you owning the therapy practice, the wellness center, which kind of go hand in hand. So being an entrepreneur and then raising teenagers, how do you juggle being a business owner, entrepreneur, and then being a mother, and then a friend and a sister, and on and on and on? How do you find the balance?
Yeah, I think I just so happen to have a lot of very gracious people in my life. My kids are so patient and flexible and loving. And so are my friends and family. I mean, everyone around me is just, that is where my riches lie. Right. And so I think there's no way I could do any of this without just the collective of people that really have believed in me and then cut me some slack, right? I think grace is a really big, thing that if we can extend that to each other, and if we can practice that for ourselves, I think that's the game changer.
And if we have a listener who maybe is struggling with finding that support system, or feels like they can't trust anyone, or they don't have good people in their life, what would be your advice, since you're a therapist?
I think that starts with an internal, your mindset. I think you have to decide first to open your heart. There are many more reasons why you could remain closed and shut off from support, and or even being able to see who's around, because it's less risky. If you don't have to bet on people, then you can, then that you think that, then I know I'm going to be okay, because I don't have to trust or be vulnerable. So I would say first to just decide if you can open your heart a little bit more to see what's around you that might already be in the wings, ready to to support you, right? The people that are already there that we just haven't really wanted to see. And I think for me, when I think back to when I was just out of my divorce with the kids, I had one good friend, Jada Selner.
Shout out Jada.
Jada, who her and I would get on the phone and we would that was my first mastermind buddy, right? So I didn't have a whole community of people. It was one person. And without fail, we would have these weekly talks, and it wasn't about venting. It was about each of us sharing our dreams and helping each other like realize those dreams. So it really only takes one person to have that like paradigm shift. And through that, I think for the both of us, it kind of led us to a whole world of like online entrepreneurs and women who were also moms, but whose mindsets were it was an and thing. Like, I can be a mom and I can like build a thriving business. Yeah. So that just became more and more of a norm. But you have to open the feedback loop. If you don't have anything else coming in to that, you're not going to grow. Right.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to that self-love. Like, you have to find the time to connect with yourself and ask yourself the hard questions and love yourself, appreciate yourself. You know, the past is the past. We're here in the present, you know, breathe in that inspiration, breathe out that expiration. Like, almost like the past is an illusion. Every day, I truly believe every day is a gift to reinvent yourself and create the life that you want, essentially.
Welcome to the WOC House, a thriving mental health and wellness center nestled in the heart of Valley Glen, California. We provide culturally sensitive therapy, energy healing, and workshops tailored to the unique needs of teens and women of color. The WOC House is also a perfect rental location for your next event, workshop, wellness retreat. It features 3 offices, 2 bathrooms, a cozy living room, library, and kitchen. And our private yoga studio is fully equipped with blankets, yoga mats, everything you need to have an amazing wellness experience. We're excited to welcome you to the WOC House.
So how have you created this vision, this imagination of the life that you have now? You know, you mentioned you went through divorce, you're a single mother, you're an entrepreneur. This is a life that you have created for yourself. And as you sit here today in front of me in your wellness center, how proud are you of yourself?
It's still kind of sinking in, you know, and I am really just grateful, I would say, that I have just been able to be the vessel. Like, this is not my house, you know, it's our house, you know, and I have my house too, right? So I've been able to experience that, but this is for the people. It's, you know, and I'm very much like connected to that, and so I think I want this to work. You know, I really want us as women, especially women of color, to rally to make this work. And we don't do things like this, you know, see things like this happen. So we have to show up for each other. And with our ideas, our dollars, right? Our connections, right? So I think that's what I'm out here in these streets trying to connect and talk to whoever I can, right? Because part of how we build, and I think about, you know, whether it's our mental health and wealth, generational, you know, wealth and prosperity, we have to like rally and pull connections, you know? So that is what I would say that's like the next focus I have now is just how do I connect and let people know about this so that together we can realize all the possibilities, because I can't do it alone.
No, definitely not.
Cannot do it alone.
I'm a firm believer in connection and community. That's all I'm about, just like how you said, like, this isn't my house, this is our house. And I feel that way with MíraLA. Like, MíraLA is, look at her, look at all these women that are doing amazing things. Give us that platform. Let us share our story and our voice, because it truly matters. And I think, like, for me, growing up as a woman of color in a patriarchal society, like, I started to unlearn a lot of the things, and even just like benevolent sexism of just like comments that men would make to me. And I would believe it, right? Like, oh, I'll pick that up for you. Like, you're a girl, or just like the things that, like, you don't really take a second to, like, when you have the time to, like, reflect on your day of, like, maybe that comment seemed helpful, but actually was, like, feeding into the stereotype. So how have you dealt with that in your career?
Well, I have to say, I have worked mostly with women, right? Most of my career has been with, like, women, and, and most of my my community, my support system are, like, bomb women. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like so blessed in that way. But we do have a lot of conversations with, like, our clients who are women of color, like, working in, maybe white dominant, like, corporate spaces or the entertainment industry. And, like, how do we unhook from the conditioned ideas of success, which tend to be more oriented towards white dominant ways of thinking and being and achieving, right? How do we unhook from that and define that for ourselves? You know what I mean? And so it's a change of, like, thinking, of language, of the way we move, of ideas of, like, masculine and versus feminine. Like, it's a whole uprooting of thinking and being that we challenge our clients with, in this concept of, like, decolonizing, our bodies, our thinking. It's a process. And so it requires someone who has also embodied experience to be able to, like, do that with. Because it can be a very scary thing to step away from something that you've seen to be truth, you're the truth for all these years. And then you wake up one day and you're like, wait a minute, like, who am I really? And what do I really want?
Right.
And I don't want that, you know what I mean? But I don't know anything else. So how do I start that journey, And so to have someone, like, hold you through that, that's what we do here.
Yeah. And it's so beautiful, everything you said. And it also made me think about our first guest that we had on our podcast. Shout out Jocelyn. She's a Latina producer, and she is a trans woman, so there's a lot of just things that she has to face every day. And something that she said that will always stick with me is, you have to walk into every room like you are a confident cis white man. And I love that, because if all of us women, and especially women of color, went into spaces where we're maybe not deemed, per se supposed to be, but we absolutely are. It's just that mindset shift and knowing that we're worthy and valuable to be in the spaces and to be in the leadership roles. I know for myself, being an entrepreneur under 30, starting a podcast, starting a media company, a film festival, it is so much. And it's very much in my masculine energy. So I have to find ways to tap into my femininity, buying myself flowers, buying my girlfriends flowers, hanging out with my feminine friends and speaking our truth, and a lot of something that I'm trying to deprogram myself is when I get with my girls, I don't want to talk about men. Like, that is something that I feel like is the programming as well. Like, a lot of women, somehow they make the men in their life, whether it's their fathers, the people that they're dating, the talk of the town. And I feel like, how do we not make men the center of our story?
Yeah. I think that is, that's huge. Or make it, I think I'm thinking on the relational side too, how do we not make that a requirement to feel complete, or whole? And I think that's changing. I think more and more women I think they're scared because, we are stepping into such a level of agency and power that it's becoming intimidating, for men. It's like straddling that balance of where can we still benefit? Because, like we're doing all the things, we're feeling all the things, and how do we make space for this other part? At least for hetero, normative, like couples and women, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So that is something we are often talking about in sessions with women.
I think too, women are recognizing that relationships and partnerships and sex is such a sacred experience, and who you share your energy with really affects you in your day to day.
Yeah.
And I think it's a beautiful thing for women to recognize that they don't have to be on a constant dating spiral. They can actually focus on their business. They can focus on their kids. They can focus on other facets of traveling and making themselves happy, making their inner child happy, connecting with that inner child. I know for myself, like that's a practice of how I find my self-love, of connecting to that little Arianna. So I'm curious to know what are some ways that you connect to your inner child?
Yeah. I mean, as you were speaking, when I decided to divorce my ex-husband, the mantra that I adopted was I would let nothing compromise my sanity or my sexy. That marriage was starting to chip away at my beauty, at my spirit, at my energy, and my mental state. And so I try to just do what I can to uphold that, so that I can protect those more, that light, that more innocent, the curious, adventurous, all the things that we like start off with that over time start to like wear, because
that
of
joy, that love.
yeah,
right?
So I think I am daily in the throes of that question, like how do I not let those things become compromised, And I also back then decided that there are like multiple buckets of joy and romance and men and love and all that. Sex, like that's one bucket. But there's so many other buckets. There's, I have the kids, and there's travel, and there's girlfriends, and there's, right? So like at any given food, at any given point, how can we keep all the buckets, full? Because you might have to go pull from one, in a little more aggressive way than the other. And I think oftentimes our bucket in that the relational sense is often just over-reliant on that one person, and all the other ones just, So, I think that's a daily, continued daily journey of keeping those buckets full.
Yeah. I love that you say that, because something I also tell myself is like, I have to make sure my cup is full before I can pour into somebody else's cup. Because if I'm constantly pouring my energy into somebody's, like, what am I left with? Then I don't get to show up as my best self, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Brenda's giving me the timer.
Okay.
But what a beautiful conversation.
Yeah.
You have such like a calming, like as presence, energy about you. Clearly she's a therapist. But thank you, Tamika, for being on the podcast and supporting me always. We're going on like 10 years, over 10 years of knowing each other. And it's just like really beautiful, like sitting here at your wellness center, and who would have thought?
With your podcast.
With my podcast.
With your crew.
Yes. It's
like, who is this?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I love it. And it's the beginning of something new for the both of us. So before we wrap up, for our listeners, if there's anything more you want to let them know about with WOC Therapy, the WOC House,
Yeah. Well, we just want to invite you, if you're local, we're here in Valley Glen, but we just want to welcome you to come, to actually see the space. I think when you're here in the space, you get it right away. It just transports you, and relaxes your nervous system immediately. So, you can find us at woctherapy.com. That's where you can book a consultation, check out our team of therapists. You can follow us on Instagram at WOC Therapy and WOC House. And that's where WOC House is where we list all of our classes and workshops. And so, yeah, come experience it. That's all I can say.
Yay!
Thank you so much for this.
Love you. Thank you so much for tuning in to the MíraLA Podcast. If you are a woman and would like to be on the show, go to MíraLaPodcast.com. Follow us on socials at MíraLA Podcast. Use hashtag MíraLA Mondays. And if you want to support the show, subscribe, share with your amigos, and tune in for new episodes every Monday. Muchas gracias.